Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Anakin Skywalker is widely hailed as one of the most successful combat pilots in galactic history. He started out at an extremely young age, which was advantageous because he didn't really understand the concept of death at that time, and his tiny little body could handle G-forces a lot better than a large adult.
I'll try spinning, that's a good trick.
I mean, this kid blew up a gigantic city-sized control ship before, he even hit puberty. Very impressive. And he would go on to become one of the most talented pilots in the famed Jedi Order Starfighter Corps, piloting state-of-the-art beauties like the Quad Systems Engineering Delta 7 Ether Sprite. It's basically like an old Dodge Viper, suicidal for most pilots to fly, unless you have immense force abilities that can allow you to really take full advantage of its robust capabilities and complete lack of flight aids. If you think like traction control and power steering and ABS is for pussies, you might like the Delta 7 Ether Sprite. I imagine in-universe the Delta 7 Ether Sprite was one of the most sought after starfighters because of these qualities. Now, Anakin also got to pilot other ships like the ETA Actis Light Interceptor as well, along with a V-Wing and a wide range of different TIE fighters, including several prototype TIE fighters that had some pretty wicked capabilities. You could say that Anakin Skywalker had the skill and opportunity to basically pilot any starfighter he wanted in the entire galaxy. If anything, Starship designers probably wanted him to drive their brand because it might increase sales. And so what was Anakin Skywalker's favorite starship? What did the legend himself like piloting the most? Well, it's a dusty old Corellian G9 rigger class light freighter called the Twilight. And I know there's really nothing sexy about this ship, it's not even symmetrical. But once you understand the story behind this ship and you also understand Anakin, you'll also understand that these two things are perfect for one another. So first, it should be mentioned that the G9 rigger was originally the property of a Hutt crime lord named Zero, who used this vessel for spice running. Usually, Corellian engineering freighters are very modular, and a lot of criminals would get these kind of low-key freighters and use the hollowed-out spaces beneath the deck to store all sorts of illicit goods for smuggling. Now, Zero's a pretty sketchy guy. I mean, he was working with the Confederacy to create tension between the Hutt clans and the Republic. In return, Zero was hoping to dethrone the leader of his own clan, Jabba the Hutt. Just your typical Hutt family kind of dynamic and a lot of backstabbing, skullduggery. And it was also something that Anakin Skywalker was fully aware of, having himself been a slave as a child under the ownership of Gardulla the Hutt, Jabba's predecessor on Tatooine.
He's just a baby. This will make our job a lot easier. Oh, he's so cute.
Just wait until you see what he'll grow into.
Basically, this guy has a really strong distaste for Hutts. He does not like them, which is a good thing because during the Battle of Teth, he runs into Zero's unguarded G9 rigger, also called the Twilight. Although Anakin didn't know at the time, he probably would go on to enjoy the knowledge that he stole this ship from a Hutt, because other than that, there was no joy in flying the Twilight, at least initially. I mean, this piece of crud barely was able to start. Zero clearly was not maintaining the ship well at all. Also, by the time the Clone Wars had started, the G9 rigger class light freighter was already considered like a pretty old school model, not exactly state-of-the-art anymore. At 34.1 meters in length, it was a relatively small freighter, thinner than the YT series of freighters loved by Han Solo, and so had a lot less storage space and living space on board. At the same time, this ship dwarfed even medium fighters like the large ARC 170 starfighter, making it a very easy target to hit, especially for nimble droid fighters used by the Confederacy. Let's just say Anakin probably had to push his piloting skills to the max in order to survive encounters, which, now that I think about it, probably made things even more enjoyable for him. But for everyone else piloting this thing, avoiding combat is a must. It really is. Because the G9 rigger is very much at the bottom range of Corellian Engineering's offerings. It is a disposable budget craft for cheap merchants or scrappers who just need a box with an engine and a hyperdrive. A Class 3 hyperdrive in this case. The G9 rigger also attracted clients who wanted a ship that looked so cheap that not even bandits and pirates would bother trying to attack it. Which means the G9 rigger's two main clientele are either very poor people without money or individuals who want to stay incognito. And Anakin, well, he used to be really poor, so he doesn't really mind the lack of features and furnishing in this ship, and as a Jedi and as the Chosen One, he definitely appreciates people not staring at him all the time. Despite being kind of small for a freighter, the interior was designed to be pretty roomy. The cockpit had chairs for a pilot, co-pilot, and navigator, along with an astromech droid socket. The ship also had a small living area and a small medical bay with a holographic droid assistant. The storage bay at the rear could accommodate a pretty large amount of spice or freight, and if needed, Anakin Starfighter could even be stored inside. I mean, even if a Class 3 hyperdrive is kind of slow, this is probably one of the cheapest and smallest ships that could actually carry a Jedi Starfighter into hyperspace. Having this small little carrier ship allows Anakin to not depend on hyperdrive rings, which can really complicate things, especially during an extraction. The rigger also had a retractable swing wing for increased maneuverability. This is also where one of the heavy blasters is located. There's also a double heavy blaster cannon above the cockpit and another blaster on the main wing. The swing wing, however, was taken out during Anakin's first foray with the ship after 2 Rogue-class starfighters engaged the Twilight in a dogfight, which ultimately ended up with Anakin crashing the Twilight on Tatooine. The first of many happy landings with this ship. And while most people would be like, I'm going to write this ship off, I'm going to throw it away, I'm going to scrap it, and I'm going to buy a brand new ship, Anakin doesn't. He just wants to keep it. And this really does fit into how he grew up, the world he was from originally before the Jedi took him away. When Anakin was a slave boy on Tatooine, he was poorer than poor. He didn't even own his own freedom. He had a freaking bomb implanted into his head. It was kind of a rough situation, but some people are born to be super resilient. And so when Anakin wanted something really badly, he couldn't just ask his mom and wait for Christmas, for the gift to arrive. He kind of had to make it happen himself. A lot of times Anakin literally just built things he wanted, like when he assembled the protocol droid C-3PO from spare parts he had scavenged over the years. He even built a full working pod racer with scavenged turbojets and won the freaking Boot Naive Classic with it. Anakin never really had many new things in his life, and while in the Jedi, as a super soldier crushing Separatist skulls, he had the full backing of the Republic military to buy and fly whatever the hell he wanted, but there was just something familiar and nostalgic about a cheap, crappy rust bucket like the G9 rigger. Heck, it's even possible that when he was a kid, he used to see these things fly around Tatooine. Maybe he, dreamed about boarding a ship like this one day so that he could escape his slavery. Kind of like how Han Solo always wanted a YT-1300 so he could make his grand escape. I think for people who are living in servitude and poverty, a ship really can solve a lot of problems. And yeah, the G9 rigger is definitely something you would see on Tatooine struggling to make it into orbit. Not everyone has to be into Ferraris and Lamborghinis and, Bugattis. Sometimes you just want something simple. I remember when I was a kid, when I was very young, the first car I wanted was a Toyota Camry because that's just what my dad drove. Now I know better. Now I know there's more things out there, but, yeah. And so after crashing the G9 in the desert, what does Anakin do? He doesn't leave it behind to rot in the sun or for the Jawas to steal. He takes it back to the Jedi Temple where he literally treats it like a project car and just works on it in between missions. First he gets the retractable wing fix, then he adds a harpoon and tow cable for Jedi shenanigans. It's not like Anakin had the time to do stuff like this. He is in the middle of a war training an apprentice. He's also trying to maintain a secret relationship with the Republic senator. He basically makes us all look like lazy pieces of shit, But I think it was important for Anakin to work on this ship because it was literally the only time he got to decompress, right? There's just something nice and familiar about taking apart components you've done 100 times and then putting it back together, maybe cleaning things. It's the meditative vibe of doing maintenance. After a especially bad mission or just a fight with Padme, this is probably the only place that Anakin could retreat to in the very restrictive Jedi Temple he lived in, where everyone shamed each other for having fucking feelings. And all throughout the war, Anakin struggled to make sure that the Twilight would maintain its shape. He added more concussion missiles onto the ship, a rotating laser that could be controlled remotely so they hopefully didn't get shot down again. And for the most part, the Twilight did hold together, barely. And even if it does get shot down again, well, I don't think Anakin cares that much about it. It just gives him more time to put it back together. To Anakin, the Twilight represents something very personal. It's a ship he wrestled away from a hut. It's a ship that he's crashed and rebuilt as many times as he did with C-3PO. It's a ship that he knows intimately and has modified with his own hands, and its more mundane appearance makes it easy for him to say, visit Padme without attracting too much attention, or as much attention as a Delta 7 ether sprite would. That thing is beautiful. And on longer missions, when the Delta 7 just wasn't comfortable, it was nice having a ship you could walk around on and stretch your legs in. And so yeah, this ship is practical. It's also really good for tinkering. But most importantly, this ship is a private space that Anakin can go to whenever he really needs to kind of get away from the Jedi Temple. Because again, everyone is looking at him, everyone is trying to control what he does. But on this little tiny freighter, he's the boss. He gets to control everything. And so when Obi-Wan Kenobi gets that message from Satine Kryze after Mandalore is taken by Maul, it's a pretty big deal that he asks Anakin for the Twilight. Sure, the ship is worse for wear by this point. I mean, it's barely able to fly at this point. But Anakin is a compassionate person, and, he's willing to give up this ship, especially if it can help his master, save his one true love. Because that's what bros do for bros when their, ex-girlfriends from high school get kidnapped by the drug cartel. If only Obi-Wan Kenobi showed the same type of support to Anakin and Padme when, they needed him. Ultimately, the Twilight would be destroyed on Mandalore after Obi-Wan Kenobi fails his rescue attempt. The ship would be forgotten, along with many things from Anakin's former life. Although I'm sure there were moments when Darth Vader thought about that dinky little ship and how nice it would be to just forget everything for a second and be able to tinker around with its always malfunctioning S-foil. I think we can all learn a lesson from Anakin's, love of the G9 rigger. In today's modern world, we're constantly being bombarded by the latest, greatest, fastest, biggest, whatever of whatever. When sometimes all we really need is to find connection with the things we buy, whether it is a car or a motorcycle. Oftentimes the most fun I've had with a vehicle, especially motorcycles, are older motorcycles with carburetors that you can fix with a rock. The simplicity allows you to understand these machines in a way that you really can't with more modern vehicles, which have all this software and nonsense wrapped around it. But yeah, I really thought it was funny that Anakin, the best pilot in the world, loves this old rust bucket. But now, the more that I think about it, it does make a lot of sense. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you out there.